So yeah, what did you think of the game then?
Well, positive, obviously. Nice to win a game at Stamford Bridge, not something that's happened particularly frequently this year. How much can we read into it with it being Luton? As far as I'm concerned, fuck loads, because we need to take, the positives when they come. And there were a lot of them. So, as far as I'm concerned, I'm getting massively carried away from a 3-0 win over the worst team in the league at home, because this time last season, I don't know if we win that game.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because I think you're probably right. Like, even those are the type of games we need to be winning. Like, Chelsea, the Chelsea we've been used to over the last 10 years or so wins, we wouldn't be surprised if we won 6-0.
Yeah.
But for us to win 3-0, it's a really big confidence booster. But the reality is that let's see how Luton get on. We don't really have a benchmark at the moment, do we?
No, we don't. But for me, you think we're 1-0 up. We've missed a few chances. Luton grow into the game a bit, have a bit more of the ball. They have a couple of moments. Now, last season, what do? We shit the bed. We concede. And then perhaps we even concede again. This year, well, in this particular instance at least, we go and score 2 more goals and kill the game off. And killing the game off is something that we've been so bad at for a number of years now. Maybe we've scored early and we're in complete control of the game, but at 1-0, you always allow the opposition a moment to get back into it. We've been so bad at just killing teams off, something that we were so good at under Ancelotti, for example. But we killed them off. We didn't let them have their moment and get back into the game at 1-1. So we can only take that as a positive regardless of who the opposition is.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's just good to just build this team's confidence up, really, because I still get that feeling that some of them are still, suffering from last season, and until we, like some fans as well, like I feel like they're just ready to get the knives out for players, but also Poch as well, and it's really important to get these wins on the board, just to build that confidence back up, get that winning mentality back. Because when's our next game? It's in 2 days, isn't it, against Wimbledon? So hopefully we'll get a couple of goals in that as well. And then we've got Forest. Is that right? Forest.
We've got and then pretty preferable run of fixtures coming up.
Yeah, Bournemouth away after the international break.
Ground, but
Villa at home, Fulham away, Burnley away. I mean, really, you'd expect us to win all those games.
Yeah, I mean, there's no easy games. Yeah, there's no easy games in the Premier League. And we probably won't win them all. But, last season, you look at that run of fixtures and you think, where are the points coming from? Like, we were in that dire straits that you're looking at all of those games, even the ones at home against bottom half opposition, and thinking, I don't know if we can even get a point out of that. But this year you're thinking, right, well, we have to go to Bournemouth away, which has always been a troublesome ground for us, troublesome fixture. You think we need to get 3 points there. Because the standards are higher now, it's not a matter of fighting for our lives and trying not to get relegated from the Premier League. We're going straight back towards, right, let's get in the top 3, the top 4. Maybe let's see how close to City we can keep. So, for us, the main thing would be win all of the games. I don't know if it's just 2 more between now and the international break. And then reset, recuperate, and carry on. Have a good winter. A good autumn. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot to be positive about. I think even if we lost against West Ham and we didn't get the win against Liverpool, I think even the biggest pessimist within the Chelsea fan base would have admitted we actually played pretty well in those games, particularly in the attacking third. We've looked a lot more fluent. I think we've created the second or third most amount of big chances in the league. And granted, finishing them off has always been something that we've struggled with. But Raheem Sterling seems to have his eye for goal back. Jackson is now on the score sheet. There's no reason why we can't start tucking these chances away, put together a run of wins, and get right back up there in terms of the Premier League table.
Yeah, I read something earlier about Sterling. Apparently, and this is just probably just stuff going around on Twitter, but apparently he's lost a bit of weight and he had like really tight hamstrings. Yeah. And sorting out his diet a little bit better has loosened up his hamstrings, so he feels like a lot looser in how he plays. I don't know how much to read into that. I personally think that with Sterling, I'm very skeptical as to how long he's going to continue all this, because he has been brilliant. He's been really good, like really, really good. Like West Ham, some of the runs he went on against West Ham, he not only is he explosive, but he seems to be making the right decisions. And he got a bit lucky for the cross for Jackson. Obviously, it was deflected, but you never know where his cross would have gone. He obviously scored 2 goals, which is really good, because one of our biggest problems over the last year or so has been scoring goals. And he just seems a lot happier in the squad. I think a lot of players do as well. They just seem a lot happy with how we're playing. I think, obviously the way we're playing under Tuchel and then obviously Potter, the football wasn't great. And I would imagine that when you're not getting results and the football's boring and you're not able to express yourself, especially players like Sterling, I imagine it does affect, sort of compounds and affects your happiness and your morale, and then obviously you play worse because of it. So, I mean, if we can get Raheem Sterling, peak times at City, because how old is Sterling now? What is he, 27, 28?
28.
So, yeah, these are his peak years, and he's one of those players as well, I feel like, and it's just sort of a modern footballer thing, but I think, go back into like the late 2000s, his pace would probably start going a little bit. But he seems to be the same player he was 5 years ago, really, like in terms of explosiveness and stuff. So, who knows? If he can maintain his explosiveness, and this season is really good, we could have a hell of a player for the next few years, and hopefully in 5 years' time we look back at Sterling as one of our better signings in this new sort of Chelsea era since 2003. So yeah, mate, I'm super impressed with him. Nicholas Jackson, though, what do you think of him?
Well, I saw a clip of the Bournemouth owner speaking on TNT Sports yesterday, kind of ruined the fact that they weren't able to get a deal for Jackson over the line in January, because he was on the verge of signing for Bournemouth. And then, by the sound of things, their prognosis on the injury that he was suffering from at the time was actually more severe than the reality, because he returned to action for Villarreal a lot quicker. Yeah. But after he started doing well for Villarreal, Chelsea started laying the groundwork, got the deal done. So we could very plausibly be speaking of Nicholas Jackson as a Bournemouth player right now, which to me is absolutely bonkers. Because I can't even think of the last time I saw this profile of striker. Just the amount of ground that he covers, his immense ball carrying, the fact that, I've seen strikers carry the ball, but the ball's always looked a little bit loose between their feet. Whereas he seems to have really good close control as well. He's good with his back to goal. He's good in tight areas. He links really well. His hold-up play is really good. And from what we've seen, granted he missed a couple of chances in his opening 2 games, but we'll go off the larger sample size of his time at Villarreal last season, had the best shot conversion rate in the second half of the La Liga season. His time throughout pre-season, where he looked cool as a cucumber in front of goal, and obviously against Luton, where he got his goal, it seems like he has really strong finishing ability as well.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of thinking, like, who the fuck is this guy? And how have we managed to get him for that price? I saw some people making a joke at the time of his signing, thinking that kind of 30 million mark's the golden zone for Chelsea signings. They never really seem to disappoint. But I'm so impressed with him, and it's kind of put me off the idea of signing another high-profile centre forward between now and the deadline, because I just want to see how far we can take it with Jackson. Because if he stays fit, we could plausibly be talking about, we come to the end of the season and the general consensus is that he's one of the best strikers in the league, and I don't think it's hyperbole to say that, even after just 3 games. He's been that impressive.
Yeah, I'm very on a very similar page to you, mate. Like, the style of play, like just how rounded he is, just because apparently he's and I'm just again speaking off secondhand opinions, but apparently he isn't great in the air for a tall guy. That's like one of the only slights I've heard against him. Really, I haven't really seen much of his aerial ability, but the way that he seems to have pace, a surprising amount of skill and flair. Like, I think it was the Luton game where someone did a back heel and then he just did a back not back heel, but like a Ronaldo chop pass. It just felt like he just did it because he could do it just for a laugh, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So he seems to have a bit of personality about him as well, which I really like. And I think we've missed that so much. Like, the last, Diego Costa comes to mind in terms of personality, and Chelsea fans really got behind him. And then obviously, Didier Drogba before that. So to have like a player like that as well, who's got a bit about him, like, personally, he's very likable. I think this is the general consensus, that he's a very likable player.
Mm-hmm.
But his work rate is unbelievable. Like, I think he's made the most off the ball runs in the Premier League so far.
Yeah,
and I just feel like, from what I've seen, and again, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but from what I've seen, like you said, at the end of the season, once we've, as long as he stays fit, which I'm a little bit concerned about, just because of the amount of work he puts in. As long as he stays fit, like, it does seem like we can develop into a fantastic all-round player. Because he just, every time he gets the ball, you think he's going to do something.
Yeah.
And I really there really isn't that many strikers like that around that do this. So I'm so excited by him. I just hope he stays fit, because if he doesn't, we are screwed at the moment. But is there any news about us actually getting a striker, like a new one?
Well, yeah, it seems as though the club are looking to play their cards close to their chest. I mean, Pochettino's made no secret of the profile forward as he wants. Excuse me, someone that can play all along the line, not just straight through the middle. Reason being that he has a lot of faith in Armando Broja, who is back in first team training and ought to be making the matchday squads and getting minutes within the next few weeks. Now, it's oftentimes the case that when a player has a long-term injury like Broja has, people kind of forget how, in what esteem he was spoken about pre-injury. Broja had been performing seriously well on an international level with Albania. And he was just kind of finding his feet in the Chelsea team, even with limited opportunities to, put a run of games and a bit of form together. Now, with his kind of imminent return, Pochettino has spoken quite frequently about him in press conferences, and that's kind of volunteered information. He hasn't even been questioned about him. He's volunteered that information, that they have a lot of faith in him. So it certainly seems like the decision from the club, or from Pochettino and subsequently the club, is that they're not going to sign another out-and-out striker at this point. Probably A, because Jackson has started so well. B, because Broja is on his way back. And C, because they can sign the profile player that can fill in right wing, maybe more crucially left wing, and through the middle. Especially with Nkunku out until the new year, it would be helpful, especially while Mudryk finds his feet, to have a player that can fill in across the front line rather than just straight through the middle, while not blocking anyone's pathway.
Yeah, that would be my ideal signing as well. Someone who can be versatile. because what we don't want is obviously, Nicholas Jackson. Like if Nicholas Jackson gets injured, I personally don't want Broyer's path completely blocked.
No,
because I really like the look of him. From what I've seen of him, I think he deserves a run. I think he could be a very good backup striker, especially if Jackson, keeps on the track he's on. But we definitely need some extra players around, especially. I'm just wondering what Nkuku is going to be like when he comes back from injury. You just never know these type of things, do you? And what often happens as well, to be a pessimist, is he might come back and pick up another injury before the end of the season, and he might need pre-season to get back into things again. Hopefully not. Hopefully he just comes back in and he lives up to the hype that everyone has around him. And Nkuku coming back after Christmas, he could help us with the push towards the end of the season, sort of February to May, and hopefully we're pushing for sort of third. Yeah, to be amazing. Because obviously it would just be like signing someone in January. So yeah, it's an interesting one. You just never know what Chelsea are going to do, but are we actually linked with, is there any strong links at the moment? Because I've just seen
there's so many names being thrown around. I know Alex Goldberg is desperate for us to sign Shirky. We were tentatively linked with him a few months back, probably less than that, around a month back. Nothing's really materialised on that front. There was Bradley Ricola from Lyon, I believe, but they've moved the goalposts on the asking price front multiple times, and the player himself wants to sign for PSG, so Chelsea haven't pursued that avenue. Brennan Johnson, Nottingham Forest, Chelsea weren't happy to go higher than the 40 million mark, so it's been reported by Fabrizio Romano. And Forest aren't willing to sell for the 40 million mark. And then, of course, there was Elise, who seemed to be Chelsea bound. And then there was all that hoo-ha about his release clause and the legalities behind our pursuit of him. And he ended up signing a new contract. So whatever's going on with Chelsea at the moment, I think it's pretty clear that they're really trying to keep this in-house and play their cards close to their chest. We've seen it before where things really kind of come out the blue with Chelsea. Particularly since Bowley Egbali have taken over. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that happen in the next few days. There is still money to spend. And there will still be departures, which will in turn provide us with more money to spend. And Pochettino has made no secret of the fact that he wanted a new goalkeeper. Great, we've got him now. And a player who can play across the front. And I'd be seriously surprised if the owners didn't deliver that for him. The good news is, by the time we record our next podcast, we'll know who it is. Because obviously deadline day is on Friday. But at this point, I don't think anyone seems to be any the wiser as to who that player is going to be.
No, we're just linked with loads of players, mate. It's just like loose links, and going back, I was going to say the same thing you said. Chelsea, and obviously we're under new ownership now, but we've done this a few times where the fans are just sort of like, we're not even linked with anyone, what's going on? And then we'll, turn BBC Sport on tomorrow and it's, we signed Nicholas Anelka or something. So I'm hoping, I think something probably going to come out of the blue. I think one of the things that I do wonder that if the whole Lukaku thing is sort of maybe holding things up a little bit. I'm not sure if that sort of plays a part in that they want to get rid of Lukaku and then confirm the signing. Because there was talk literally a few days ago of Chelsea having talks with Lukaku to see if he could actually be integrated into the squad. Obviously, that's not going to happen because he looks like he's off to Roma, and we're getting 7 million apparently for a loan fee. Every time I think about the finances around that deal, honestly, it makes me sick. But
best not to.
Yeah, it's I wonder if like Lukaku will go and then we'll announce someone straight away. I'm just not sure who that's going to be though, because it's obviously not going to be a big money signing. I would imagine that it's going to be a young, versatile forward that we can develop, who's not going to get in the way of Jackson, of course, because Jackson could be. There's just no need to go out and buy a big striker. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting. But honestly, mate, I just like you said, I've seen a lot about Cherky and a couple of others on Twitter, but it's people we've been linked with for weeks and weeks, and like Elise is that looked like we were gonna get him, then we didn't. So yeah, it's gonna be super interesting, mate. But I don't know, like
the thing is, it gets to the point where when there's no news, all media publications can do is regurgitate old news. So whoever we've been linked with previously is currently being mentioned as, they're on our list. They're on our list. So the assumption is that it's going to be one of these players, but I wouldn't be surprised if we sign someone that you and I have never heard of. I also wouldn't be surprised if the club went and dropped 120 million on, one of the best wide forwards on the planet, just because that's the way we operate nowadays. It seems to be one extreme or the other. But either way, I think it's pretty clear we need someone with pretty high shot volume. Creative, of course, but I think, you look at the shot volume of Madueke, Mudryk, not particularly high. Sterling is a player with high shot volume who hasn't actually been producing those numbers consistently since he joined. He's in a good run of form. Will it last? Who knows? We need someone from the wide areas who can, actually take a shot at goal and chip in with a few goals. Someone like Heung-min Son, but not Heung-min Son, because there's not a chance in hell Spurs are going to sell to us. That'd be my ideal. And also, hopefully it would mean we stop seeing Ben Chilwell play left wing, because as much as I'm a big fan of the bloke, that little one-on-one situation against Luton where he decided to try to square it to Sterling, I think if anything, if it needed reaffirming that he's he shouldn't be found in those areas of the pitch, that moment certainly reaffirmed it.
Yeah, it was just a shame that Mudryk was injured. Because I was actually looking to Luton. I was like, right, this is going to be his game where he gets full 90 minutes. So, yeah, fingers crossed. That's the problem with I'm just very aware of injuries at the moment. Like, it's one of those things where you're sort of looking at a squad and you're like, if another two drop, we are in serious trouble. And the Nkunku injury is like, we can't go out and sign. I think if we didn't have Nkunku, if Nkunku wasn't there, the way we'd obviously go out and sign a forward would be very different. But we just need to be. It needs to be a balancing act, with the plan of Nkunku's going to come in and hopefully be a leading player. Hopefully by January, Jackson's got 10 goals or something, and we're absolutely loving him. And then we've just got Breyer as a backup. So yeah, the type of player we need to sign is. It's all you basically just want someone who can do a job up top, and then it has a bit of pace and end product around them when playing on the wing or behind the striker, right?
Yeah, I think there's also some consideration that Ivan Toney is going to be available in January. Obviously, I don't think signing Toney would be the nail in the coffin for either Jackson or Broja, because Toney's a fantastic Premier League proven player with a great profile, but hasn't been proven at this level. But you're kind of looking at around even the £40 million mark for a player of his quality, where he's made it pretty clear. I mean, he's said on a recent podcast that he's going to be leaving Brentford. The expectation is that will be when he's back available to play, when he's back from his betting ban in January.
Yeah.
Then he'll move. So I don't know if the club, there's other teams interested. Spurs are linked. Man United are heavily linked. But I don't know whether that's in the back of the club's mind that there have been recent reports that Chelsea have had weekly updates from Toney's representatives just to keep him informed on his condition while he's away from the pitch. I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case with the other interested parties, Man United, Spurs, so on and so forth, but it certainly goes to indicate that there's interest there. So maybe there'd be some consideration to that. Listen, we don't have an endless pot of gold. If we are looking to sign Tony in January, then maybe we can't afford to go and drop 40, 50 million on this player that Pochettino's looking for. But we'll see. We'll see what transpires over the next few days anyway. To be honest, irrespective of whether we sign anyone or not, we can't say that we've had anything less than a great transfer window, considering the amount of work that needed to be done on the squad, both in terms of outgoings and incomings, done exceptionally well. I think that'd be reflected a lot more if Nkunku wasn't injured. So it's such a damn shame, really. It's like you think about if Enzo picked up a hamstring injury in his next match out and was unavailable for 2-3 months, you'd be thinking we're royally fucked here, because that's an irreplaceable player. Just think in terms of output, creative-wise, and actual direct goal contribution, I think Nkunku can have that equal influence in the attacking third. And it's just a damn shame that we haven't been able to have that from the start of the season. But this is Chelsea Football Club and no one can stay fit. So it's a shame, but it's not surprising.
Yeah, I think with Nkunku, like I imagine we were looking to build the entire team around him, and it is frustrating just to think of like where we would be, because I think even like the formation and the style of play might have changed quite a lot as well. And who knows, maybe with that extra attacking threat, with someone who can actually unlock, defenses who sit back, Jackson might have got a few more goals. But it's not the situation we're in. So it's also going to be interesting because apparently Man United want to sign Cucurella. Yes. What do you think of that?
Well, they're in pretty dire need of a left back at this point. Luke Shaw's out for longer than was initially anticipated, so he might not be back till the new year. I think it seems as though Pochettino has been so impressed with Ian Maatson, and we have Chilwell, we have Colwill who can play on the left side of defence. So it's kind of like, Cucurella's on, let's call it 170k a week. We're not in the Champions League. We're not in any European football. When is he going to play? You have a player who has a £60 million price tag on his shoulder, was heavily linked with Man City, who became the treble winners soon after he missed out on that move. I don't think he's going to be happy sitting on the bench. There's a lot of consideration for, Chelsea need to get rid of Cucurella, but on the flip side, maybe Cucurella needs to get rid of Chelsea for him to push on in his career and get in the Spanish squad for next year's European Championships. So I wouldn't be surprised if it certainly seems as though Chelsea have opened the door for Cucurella to leave, likely on loan at this point. And Cucurella's probably going to be open to it. Question is, United have a bit of an injury pickle. Do we really want to be the ones to patch over that for them? I'm not entirely sure. And you can think, they are not going to be challenging for the title. So ultimately, they are going for one of the spots below, let's call it City, Arsenal, that we're going to be going for. But if there's no other interest, and do you really want to keep an unhappy player around on high wages? If United give us healthy loan fee and cover all the wages, maybe wouldn't be the end of the world. I think something else to consider is that certainly this summer, the club haven't been opposed to selling to direct rivals. Mount to United, Havertz to Arsenal. Granted, they both had less than ideal starts. But the club have taken that risk if the conditions of the deal have suited Chelsea. So I wouldn't really be surprised to see that one materialise, but wouldn't be surprised if people weren't happy with it.
Yeah, I'm of the opinion don't want to see a loan. If we're gonna send them to United, I want to get money up front for it. I don't like the idea of helping them out on a loan. You know, I'd want a fee. It's a weird one, Cucurella, because it's like there was so much hype around him when we got him, and everyone was saying, "Oh, he can play left back, left wing back, or even left centre back." And yeah, it's just a weird one because he's really not been there that long. Do you know what I mean? It's just the way he's just sort of petered out as a player already. So strange. And he's only 25. Like, yeah, but it's also one of those where it's like I don't mind selling him to a direct rival because I just don't rate him. I just can't see him like he's going to plug a gap for sure, but I just can't see him like driving the team forward. But something you said there was interesting. So you said Man City, Arsenal. Arsenal have not started very well this season.
They haven't. Well, they weren't particularly convincing against Fulham. The likelihood in my mind is that Mikel Arteta, after one more bad result, is going to shit the bed and we're never going to see Kai Havertz again. Because he's tinkered with a system which almost took an Arsenal team that man for man was substantially behind Manchester City to the Premier League title in a year that City won the treble. So you think about how enormous an achievement it is. Obviously, there's no prizes for getting second place, and Arsenal did bottle it, but it's no doubt an achievement to get close to what will go down as one of the greatest teams in English football history.
Yeah.
Arsenal almost pipped them to the post. Now, what confuses me is why Arteta has had a look at that and thought, you know who I'm going to sign? Kai Havertz. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to reform my entire system to fit in this player that has been subpar for another Premier League team over the past few seasons. A player that has proven that he doesn't have the necessary skill set to perform and succeed in the Premier League. Might do well elsewhere, but he's not going to here. I give it one more bad result before Arteta bites the bullet. Havertz is on the bench. Arsenal reform to tie it, and they're back to their very best. I think, you know, from our perspective, it was always a questionable sign, and especially at that price, it seemed like we robbed the bank. You kind of questioned why Arsenal was signing him. Arsenal fans had this theory that he was going to be playing left centre mid and he was going to be arriving late into the box and be the second coming of Kaka linked with Frank Lampard if they had a little love child. The reality is that it's the same player we saw for the past few seasons, and Arteta's been playing him through the middle regardless. So I don't know. It seems to be a turning point on social media this week after the Fulham game, where Arsenal fans have realised that, you know, Havertz didn't wake up one day and just decide to learn how to play football again. He's still the same Kai Havertz, and I feel like they've made a pretty serious error there.
It's weird, mate. It's just I mean, absolutely over the moon. I've never rated Havertz, and I never feel like he. I was talking to someone the other day, and we were talking about how. Do you remember in his early days when he looked even worse, and everyone was saying, "Oh, it's because he's had COVID." When he gets over his COVID, give him a couple of months, and he'll be explosive. You know, he's really quick. He's great on the ball. He's like, you know,
straight away. I saw someone tweet saying like it's like seeing Matic play attacking midfield, and after that, I couldn't unsee it, and I never unsaw it.
What when he was playing for us or Arsenal?
When he was playing for us. Like the first time when he first joined, and you're just seeing these big gangly legs trying to control the ball, and it was like it's Nemanja Matic is back and he's playing attacking mid, and I was sat there trying to convince myself that this like £72 million signing was going to be the second coming of Kaka, while watching Matic cut about in the final third. And then, like you say, people are like, oh, he's had COVID, he's adapting to a new league, a new country, he's a young lad, this and that. And then he never really improved. But yeah.
Mate, now I'm running through like highlights in my head, and that is actually a very good comparison. Like a slightly better Nemanja Matic, it's slightly more mobile than Nemanja Matic.
Yeah.
That's I can't believe I've never seen that before. But honestly, I just there was always like this. I think there always is. Whenever you sell a young, supposedly talented, or at least hyped footballer to a direct rival, obviously the worst thing you want to see is them kicking on and becoming a really good player. I think Salah, De Bruyne. I know we didn't sell them directly to them, but it's happened to us a couple of times. And there was like a little bit of doubt inside me where I was like, if he becomes good, it's going to be twice as devastating as if they just over like in comparison to them just signing him and like beating us to the signing, if that makes sense. So, but everything I've seen so far, he's just the same player, and I don't know why they signed him. It's completely baffling to me. I don't know what's gone on. I don't know what Arteta's looked at. Maybe they've edited his Bundesliga highlights into Chelsea highlights or something, and he was like, "Oh, I didn't realise he was this good." But it's such a strange one, and like you said, he didn't seem to be a necessarily signing for them, and there was no evidence to suggest he was ever going to be successful there. But when you're signing a player who actually not only is he not good enough, and you're spending a lot of money on him, but he seems to be upsetting a system. I just don't get it. Like you said, they were so close, and Declan Rice makes sense, top player, but it's just weird, mate. It's just weird. So, yeah, it's great for us though. I don't think he's gonna drop him. I think he's gonna I think he's going to keep playing him. I think they need to. I think it's one of those things where I think they spent so much money that they're going to persist, which is great. Which is great for us. And they've really not. The thing is as well, they're not even playing well. They look like a completely different team. It's weird.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're going to see points throughout this season that Arsenal, to be honest, even like last season, are relying on. Certainly towards the end of last season, relying on individual brilliance. You think that Bukayo Saka is such a top quality player, was off the boil against Fulham for the most part. I think he scored a penalty, but generally speaking was off the boil, and Arsenal looked a lot worse and a lot less of a goal threat. They rely on individual quality from their wide players, Gabriel Martinelli being another one. Odegaard can grab a game by the scruff of its neck. I think if Arsenal are going to keep pace with Man City, they're going to have to drop Havertz, because City ordinarily, Pep fucks about for the first couple of months of the season, or at least up until the first international break, and then figures out what his best team is, and then City go on a run after, certainly into the new year. They've started this season, and even if they weren't 100% against Sheffield United, they created so many chances that game could have been dead and buried very quickly. Make no mistake, City have not dropped off at all this year. They're going to go, if anyone's going to go stride for stride with them, they need to be punch perfect. And Arsenal aren't going to be able to do that with Kai Havertz. So yeah, I hope that they persevere with the experiment, because they'll be worse off for it. Another thing I'd want to touch on, actually, bit of a segue, is not just Mason Mount, who has started poorly at United. Picked up where he left off last season at Chelsea. I think he's now injured, actually.
Is he?
I think he's picked up an injury, yeah. But the comparison to Conor Gallagher, who I think has been brilliant so far this season, and it kind of makes you wonder, was Conor Gallagher what we thought Mason Mount was all along? Or is that serious revisionism? Maybe it's a bit of both. You think, Mason Mount, the boy who had a dream that was always desperate to make it at Chelsea, wear the armband and so on and so forth. When he had an opportunity to do so, he jumped ship and signed for Man United. Conor Gallagher has had multiple offers to sign for Premier League clubs this year, in which he would be guaranteed playing time. And what's he done? He's made it absolutely clear that he doesn't want to go anywhere. He's worked hard. He's proven himself to Pochettino. He's getting the opportunities now, and he's taking full advantage of them. So I just wonder if, I didn't want to lose Mason Mount this summer. If you asked me at the start of the summer, I'd say absolutely no way. Get that boy a new 8-year contract. Give him what he wants.
Mm.
Now I'm thinking, hang on, we've got, near enough £60 million in the bank, and have we actually got an upgraded model waiting for us? I mean, it would be quite a statement to say, but if there is any drop-off from Mount to the way Gallagher's playing at the moment, I don't think it's substantial.
Yeah, I think I see. The thing is, I've always preferred Gallagher, in terms of like how he plays, because he's a bit more physical. He's got a bit more about him, and when he's on it, he is a quite a tidy player. He can carry the ball quite well, but his work rate is phenomenal, and he sticks himself about. Mount's like a very intelligent technical player, and hopefully his slow start to United continues. I think he'll be like a decent player for them eventually, but I just didn't see Mount being a first teamer when we're challenging for the title, which is obviously where we want to get to. I couldn't see where he fits in, and I always saw him as a squad player, but I think he sort of bought into his own hype a bit. And
for sure,
Gallagher, like you said, I think the thing with him is the fact that, like you said, supposedly he's had numerous offers, numerous opportunities to go, and he's like, no, I'm Chelsea. I want to stay and I'll fight. And he's got his opportunity, and he seems to be taking it. I know he had a bit of a dodgy start against Liverpool, but he grew into that game, and Poch seems to like him. So yeah, it'll be a fantastic result if Gallagher steps up, gets this extra game time. The more he plays under Poch as well, the better he's going to get, because he's how old is he now? He's
got to be 22, 23 at an absolute max.
He's 23. So he's 24 in Feb. So he's still very young, really. Like, he's still got lots to learn. But he's also the type of player where I can see him like plugging gaps as well, because of his work rate, because of his, he's got a good amount of pace. He can carry the ball. I can see him being a very important player for us. And he's one of those players as well. It's like, I feel like he'd do a job, left forward, right forward, number 10 role, CDM. He's a very important player. I don't see Mount being able to do that. Because aren't United playing Mount like deeper as well?
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of like the attempt. But I think Ten Hag has already kind of abandoned that. And he's been, well, you look at it, Bruno Fernandes was swapped with Mount in Man United's game against Wolves, I believe it was. And Mount further forward, and Fernandes kind of sacrificed a little bit further back. And Fernandes ultimately came further forward again at the weekend when United came back to win, and he was by far their best player. So you think if you're moving Bruno Fernandes into a position in which he's less effective to cater for Mason Bloody Mount, I mean, you're kind of asking for trouble there. I kind of thought when United signed Mount, like, where on earth are they going to play him? You think you got Casemiro and you got Eriksen, that midfield duo in the pivot performed really well for United last season, particularly towards the end. Then you got Fernandes in the 10, you got Rashford on the left, and on the right, you've got €100 million Antony. You've also got Sancho in the equation. You've got Garnacho in the equation. Through the middle, they've now signed this Højlund. Not that Mount or any of the others really, bar Rashford, can play through the middle anyway. I think, where on earth have you signed Mount? Like, where do you plan to play him? It seemed like pure opportunism from United that a player like Mount was available. Ten Hag liked him from his time at Ajax and Mount's at Vitesse, and they just decided to sign him. It's kind of perhaps comparable to Arsenal signing Havertz and being like, oh yeah, he's available, I'll take him. I'm sure we'll find somewhere to put him. Suddenly you're left with a £60 million asset, thinking, oh, actually, where are we going to put him? And Chelsea have £120 million in the bank and have, substantially improved as a result of it. Broke the British transfer record, signed one of the best midfielders in the league. Like, we've done really well this summer on that front, not only for getting good prices for players that were perhaps surplus to requirements, but also seems like we've caused a bit of a headache for two of our direct rivals. So certainly not going to complain about that.
Yeah, it's a funny one, mate. It's all working out really well. We've had quite a good bit of luck here, really, because you said got rid of Havertz. He seems to have messed up their system, and we've got rid of Mount, and he's really not doing very well. He wasn't. I don't think he was even playing well in preseason, was he? But
no,
he just doesn't seem to. Yeah, it'll just be hilarious, really. It's like £120 million worth of signings for our rivals, and they're just not performing. But I think with Mount, like, there is a massive amount of hype around him, even from his time at England as well. Like, I never thought he was like that world beater level. Don't get me wrong, like, it would be really useful to have him in the Chelsea squad right now, even if not as a starter. But I don't think he's going to be a top tier player, and maybe it would be different if they didn't have to shoehorn him into the system. But it is just, again, like one of those signings where you're just like, well, great for us, but it's just bizarre to see how they're going to integrate him into the system without upsetting what was working for them. It's going to be interesting to see how Ten Hag gets on generally as well, because there's already question marks around him. Like, do we need to go get another manager?
Yeah, well, that will be a question for United's new owners if the Glazers actually do sell, which at this point is starting to look like they might not. So that would be superb, rather than them getting cash-rich Qataris who, use £50 notes to wipe their asses. We'd much rather have a couple of, cash-greedy Americans who have taken out every penny that they possibly can from the club. There'd be those that sit there and say, how could you want that for such a great club like Manchester United to, be drained of cash and, all positivity by Americans? But I sit there and say, no, that's exactly what I want. Fuck them. So we'll see on that front. But yeah, I don't know, mate. Like, you talk about our chances to get in the top 4 or top 5, whatever it will be, to get Champions League football. I don't really see that much challenge this year. Liverpool don't look great. They're not going to get another top DM. That Endo that they signed looked like toilet water yesterday. Newcastle threw away a 1-goal lead against 10-man Liverpool. In fact,
they did that.
Not even against 10-man Liverpool, against Darwin bloody Nunez. 2 great finishes, mind. You got Arsenal, who, look a little bit off the pace compared to last year. United aren't really getting their shit together. Brighton looked pretty formidable and then got done 3-1 by West Ham on their home turf. No, I'm okay with us just kind of plodding along, maybe not flying out the blocks, but looking like, there are solid foundations there, and we're going to have players come back from injury, Reece James, ultimately, and Nkunku. We're going to have another player or two come into the squad before the deadline. We're going to have new signings settle even further. Hopefully Mudryk getting up to speed. Hopefully Madueke back from injury, bedding in properly. Sterling stays in this purple patch. It's good signs for us, and I'm more than happy for people to kind of count us out. You look at the table now, we're 10th, but I can see blue skies on the horizon for us. Not least because things are going well here, but because things aren't so rosy at those who ultimately we're going to be competing with. Tell you what, though, team I've been surprised with is Spurs. It was always a bit of a wild card getting. I'm going to call him Ange because the surname's.
I was waiting. I was running it through my head. Postecoglou or something, isn't it?
Postecoglou, maybe something like that. Call him Ange. Always a bit of a wild card, but he's got him playing really well. James Maddison looks like a top signing. Maybe it kind of helps him to be free of the whole, will Kane stay? Will he not? What are we going to do about Harry Kane? Maybe it's just better for him to move on from that. But point being, bar Spurs and City, none of them have been particularly convincing at the start of the season. So signs are there that we can get back in the Champions League is what I'm saying.
Yeah, for sure. I think if things keep going the way they're going, like you said, Sterling. If Sterling is the type of player he's going to be this season, Nicholas Jackson's only going to get better the more confident he gets, and the more we learn about how he plays, and we can get him better service. I've got a lot of people are skeptical, but I've got big hopes for Mudryk this season. I think he could be a massive player for us if he gets running.
Is he your new Torres? There's something about them blonde highlights, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, mate. It is. It's just a good-looking guy. So it is. Just go after the good-looking ones. But no, mate. I really like Mudryk. Honestly, like I said, I've said it to you a few times, but it gives me young Mo Salah vibes. And I just feel like I watch him, and I go on Twitter and everyone's saying, "Oh, he's rubbish, he's awful, like he played horrendous." I see a very explosive, dangerous player who, when he finally gets a run of games, which he hasn't had yet, by the way, and he was playing in an absolutely awful team last season, which did not it was almost like we were trying to block the service to him, because I remember there was a couple of games where Mount would sort of occupy the space where Mudryk would be running into. And it just, I feel like in this system, he could be an extremely dangerous player. I mean, even if you just look at what he's done so far, like coming off the bench, like he had that chance, I think it was against Liverpool. Yeah, against Liverpool, we rounded the goalkeeper. He got a lot of shit for finishing it, but he actually did quite well to turn around and give it to Maatsen. I thought if Maatsen scores that, which he probably should have, everyone's saying, "Oh, well, fantastic assist by Mudryk." And then I know he had that attempt where he sort of tried to volley at top corner and skied it. But I thought that game as well, he come on and he looked dangerous. He looked really, he picks a ball up and he runs at players. It's what we want. So I have really high hopes for him. If we can get him playing, Sterling maintains it. Jackson looks really good. Madueke was really promising last season in a crap team. And then, like you said, we've got Nkunku to come back, and we might sign someone decent as well. We're in a really good situation. Not sure about Sanchez so far. Not really seen. I feel like we need a game where he actually gets tested a few times to sort of actually see how good he is. Did you see Kepa as well? Conceded. I know it didn't get counted in the end, but that was hilarious, that goal.
3 minutes into his debut. Mate. It's a shame VAR chalked it off, but we've had to suffer enough for it. Let the Real Madrid fans deal with that shit now. It makes me laugh so much. You go from Courtois, who obviously we're not particularly fond of as a fan base. I think he's the best goalkeeper in the world at the moment. You go from that to Kepa, who, the less said the better. Even if it is temporary, they're going to have to deal with him for a whole season at least. That is so funny to me. And Sanchez, I'm willing to give him a chance purely because he's not Kepa, which kind of says it all, really. There was a weird one against Luton where, one of their players struck it at him and he kind of spun it round with his knuckles and then caught it.
He palmed it. Didn't he?
It's so unorthodox. Okay. Whatever works for you, mate. Just keep the ball out the back of the net. like you say, you kind of need to see him come under siege a little bit. Remember Mendy at Brentford a few years ago, where they were just lobbing the ball into the box at every possible opportunity, and he made multiple like wonderful saves. You're thinking, okay, yeah, he's the real deal in terms of shot stopping. Need to see Sanchez, pull off a few saves like that, or even you look at Alisson, for example. Obviously wasn't able to do it yesterday for Liverpool, but how many times has Alisson not been tested for a full 90 minutes, and then suddenly makes the most incredible save? The one time a player's 1-on-1 with him, that's where goalkeepers at top clubs really earn their money. De Gea at United, I think De Gea was so disrespected by United fans. Granted, he might not have been allegedly as good in possession as Onana, but from what we've seen of Onana early doors, he's not a patch on De Gea in terms of shot stopping. Call me archaic, but goalkeeper's job is to keep the ball out of the back of the net. And I recognise that managers want to build from the back nowadays and completely understand the necessity of goalkeepers being good with their feet, but how good do you need a goalkeeper to be at with their feet? Realistically, if the trade-off is to have someone who is substantially worse in terms of keeping the ball out of the back of the net. But I assume Sanchez will remain our number one for this season because Petrovic's time from the MLS is apparently high rated, but I don't know if he can feasibly force his way in. Depends how Sanchez does, I assume. But
yeah, it's I don't know. It is a weird one. Just that how we got rid of Kepa and we replaced him with someone who's statistically worse somehow. Yeah. So it's just a strange one, mate. And it is. I haven't seen enough of Sanchez yet to like judge him either way. Yeah, and he's not like. I don't know. I don't really have an opinion of him so far, to be honest with you. What I have seen of him, he's okay. I don't know. Like, is he better than Kepa? I don't know. But the bar isn't exactly high. So I wanna see a game where he makes a couple of quality saves, and then we'll see how we go. But I would imagine that unless he has a Mendy season where he looks like an absolute world-class goalkeeper, I would imagine that we'll go in and try and... Or we were like lining someone else up for next summer sort of thing. Yeah. But, who do you buy? Who else is out there? Is there? So
I don't know. I mean, you potentially someone like Diogo Costa from Porto, but, as you say, there's very few people... that we could feasibly go for. I think maybe the reason we've kind of, chosen a stopgap this season is because the options are pretty limited on the market. Say that we turned down the opportunity to sign Onana for 45 odd mil. I think B, we didn't really consider it a priority, or at least wouldn't deem it a priority if the correct player wasn't available on the market. So I think we were more than happy to shelve it until next season, whilst getting a player like Sanchez in who, irrespective of whether he's, a huge upgrade on Kepa or not, he's going to be good enough for this season, or at least he should be. He can't be catastrophically bad to the point that he derails our entire top four pursuit. Touch wood. And then we sign a player, Petrovic, who... It's low risk, high reward, isn't it? £14 million from the MLS, great statistically, apparently really high rated, absolutely massive. And maybe he can grow into the number one spot. You don't know, but I reckon regardless, we revisit this next summer. Have other priorities for this year.
I think it's just going to be one of those, mate, where it's like... Just by January, we'll either be saying, Sanchez is decent, fair play, or he's horrendous, and it becomes urgent. I think that's the thing. So
just another point though, it's something that I would note is that Ederson at Man City, while he's probably the greatest goalkeeper of all time in terms of passing range, he's not actually that great in goal. You think whenever City play Ortega, their backup goalkeeper, there's a noticeable upgrade in terms of actual shot stopping ability. I think this is the consensus among the City community, City fan base. But just because of the way City play, you got to play Ederson. You don't need that great a goalkeeper to be successful. I know Gary Neville likes to say you can't challenge for the Premier League title unless you have a top goalkeeper in goal. Don't really agree with that because I don't think Ederson's a top goalkeeper. I think if Ederson's passing range was, average, then you'd think, how's this guy playing for Man City? Obviously, Liverpool have an absolute world beater in goal. Arsenal, as we've spoken about previously on this podcast, almost won the Premier League ahead of one of the greatest teams of all time last season with Ramsdale in goal. Ramsdale had a good season, but what have they done? They've gone out and they've got David Raya from Brentford to provide competition for him. I think it's just kind of, with goalkeepers, when the market is not booming, I think clubs, all you really can do is, throw shit at the wall and hope some sticks. I think perhaps that's what we're doing a little bit with Sanchez.
Yeah, he's how was he, 25? Didn't cost us a lot of money. Just, is he good enough to get us in the top 4? That's all we need. Yeah. Good enough to get us in the top 4, and then wait to see how he gets on this season. He might end up being our goalkeeper for the next 3 or 4 years. I mean, again, the bar isn't exactly high. The next time we get a Thibaut Courtois, it could be fucking another 5-6 years or so. But
it could be. Or not.
The thing is, Chelsea, we were so lucky with goalkeepers for so long. Like, we had...
been spoiled.
Mate, honestly, I was looking through it the other day. We had Ed de Hoy in the 90s, who's pretty decent. Netherlands goalkeeper. Went straight from him to Carlo Cudicini, who, in my opinion, is one of the biggest bargains in Premier League history. I think it's like 160 grand for a guy who won the Golden Gloves. One of my favourite players of all time. Went straight from him to Petr Cech. Petr Cech, obviously, legendary goalkeeper. She went straight from Petr Cech to Thibaut Courtois. That's we're talking 20 years there. So, if it means we suffer for a little bit, maybe we'll do it. But again, I don't have an opinion. I haven't been that impressed with Sanchez from what I've seen of him, if I'm honest. But again, I'm not going to judge him on judging on what he's done so far. Maybe Kepa as well was a bit of a toxic personality. Maybe that's why they just wanted to get rid of him. But he's also on fucking incredible wages for his level ability. So yeah, we'll see, mate. We'll see. But yeah, trust in Poch. Last thing as well. What do you think of Caicedo?
Yeah, I mean, he had a shaky start against West Ham. Couple of shaky touches against Luton, and then I thought he was absolutely brilliant.
He just sort of he was dribbling the ball out, and he just sort of I thought he was injured. I was like, oh no,
yeah,
he sort of buckled over and fell over. I was like, what is going on?
It's literally like he slipped on a banana in Mario Kart or something. It just like very bizarre. But a couple of moments of the game, there was one in which he won the ball back from like an angle in which he had absolutely no right to do. Like the tackle where he just kind of like seemed like he dislocated his knee to wrap his leg around and hook the ball around. And then another when he closed down a shot where he just absolutely flew out the penalty area to close down and made a block. It feels good to have another number 6. There were times where Luton were getting at us down the flanks, very few times, but times nonetheless. What we've had far too often over the past few years is a player doing a little bit of skill or playing a 1-2 around Jorginho or Kovacic. Or with Jorginho, you just got to run and you'll outpace him. Guy can't even outrun Kevin Friend. But we have a proper number 6 now that can protect the centre-backs, and I think that was pretty clear against Luton. And Enzo was bloody brilliant again, and he completely abandoned all of his defensive responsibilities and just kind of hung around at like left wing, it almost seemed like. And why is that? It's because you got Caicedo behind you. I think we really hit the jackpot. Big fee, but you don't mind if you get a top player like we're seeing with Enzo. So yeah, I'm very happy. I think he's going to be quality.
Yeah, I like the way as well he sprays the ball around.
Yeah,
he seems to have a good range of passing, but also comparing to like the likes of Jorginho and Kovacic, he's always looking for that direct pass, like to spray it to the flanks. So yeah, mate, I don't think we've seen half of what he's capable of. The reality is he's probably nowhere near match fit, but yeah, it is nice to have that sort of player, and if it means releasing Enzo, like he's such a good player. I think people are sort of like not understanding how good he is actually, because I honestly think from what I've seen so far, even under like Potter and Lampard, I honestly think he could become, from what I've seen, a very, very, very good player. And I think he's just a very likable player as well. I think Chelsea fans
he is
straight away, just in terms of how he is, how he looks, how he plays. If he can add some goals to his game, yeah, we're talking elite level midfielder. If Caicedo is as good as we hope he is, in comparison to the money, we've got one of the best pivots in world football. So let's see. It's one of those things. It's just like, because it's so early in the season, I just wish I could fast forward 4 months down the line and just see how we're playing, because the signs are there that we've got a fucking quality manager. It still seems weird that he's our manager, to be honest with you. I don't.
Yeah.
I really like. I was excited. I was super excited to get Poch. I was like, he was best case scenario for me. I was just like, I loved him at Spurs. I like him as a person, and we've gone through it before on the podcast, but I feel like he will be a fan favorite manager as well, up there with Pete Conte, Jose Mourinho, those type of managers. But the football seems to be what we've wanted for such a long time, like what we thought we were getting with Sarri. There's so many good signs of that, and we're not even like, we've got injury problems. We've got Mudryk out, we've got Reece James out, we've got Nkunku out. Nicholas Jackson is a work in progress. Very young bench, very young squad. But the signs are certainly there that we're going to be playing some really good football, and I'm super excited to see where we're at in January, especially when Nkunku comes back and whoever else we sign. If we can get like one more pacey, tricky player in before the end of the window who can play up top, but also across the front three, I think we're in a really good situation. And like the likes of Levy Colwell, he could end up saving us 80 million on the centre back.
Yeah.
I forget, we've also got we've got Badia Shield to come back, we've got Fofana to come back eventually. Gusto I like Gusto as well, by the way. I think he looks like a good little player, to be honest. He seems to have a very good cross on him, and I think he's got 2 assists in 3 games.
He got 2 assists against Luton alone.
Yeah.
You think, when
Reece James has got 1 assist in 16 games, by the way.
The thing is, I don't think there's any doubt that Reece James will be our starter in that position. Rightly so. He's such a good player. But you used to A, fear Reece James getting injured because it's going to happen every couple of weeks, but B, because you've got a fossilised version of Cesar Azpilicueta to come in for him when he's not fit. Now we got Malo Gusto, which seems to be a great bit of recruitment at not a particularly high price, very young as well. Another great job from the club scouting department. We no longer have to worry so much about Reece James getting injured, which is great.
Yeah, and then obviously we've got Maatsen as well, who Poch seems to like. He's a good little player, Maatsen. I'm not really sure where he's meant to be playing though. Like, I'm not sure what his position is, because I thought he was a left back. But
he was. But Company used him a left wing, central attacking midfield, right wing, and left back last season. So I think Poch has been kind of, you see how Chilwell's playing this kind of hybrid role where he's a left back come centre forward. I think we might find ourselves in a position where Maatsen ultimately, edges him out in that role because he's got more attacking prowess. Now, he scored a brace in a game in pre-season. Granted, it's pre-season, but he was a goal threat for Burnley last year as well. So I think there's something that Poch sees in him, not just because of his ability and his potential, but also because he would kind of fit like a glove into not just that role, but he's very versatile. And for a team that gets a shitload of injuries, having versatile players in your squad is really, really crucial. And to think the initial plan was to sell him for 25 odd mil, because he's another player that would be pure profit on the books. He and Gallagher were earmarked by the club's hierarchy as players that could be sold this summer, along with Trevor Chalobah, to kind of make way for incomings. And now you think, I wouldn't want to see Gallagher or Maatsen lead the squad, because I think they're gonna have important roles to play this season.
Yeah, I just think the way we've got like some really versatile players like Maatsen, like Gallagher, who can plug gaps, while we figure out who our best team is, but also covering for injuries as well, because we're going through a bit of a bad luck with injuries. I really like the look of him so far. He's a small player, but he seems very nippy. He seems good on the ball, good agility, good close control. Could be like, he's a really good attacking alternative to Chilwell on the left as well, I think. But yeah, no, he's another player that could save us 50, 60 million where we can spend elsewhere. So these are the type of players I like keeping around. When people talk about, no academy players come back to bite us in our arse. We've never got rid of someone for them to turn into like a world-class player. No, but surely it's better bringing through academy players like Maatsen, like Gallagher, who, even if they're just squad players, well, then you're not spending 60 million on a Cucurella to then have him be a squad player. So
it's always been the argument. Always been the argument. You plug the holes in the squad with academy players, and that allows you to spend big money on elite players to start for you. And if any of the academy players ultimately become a Reece James, where suddenly they're actually, elite level players that can come into the starting 11, great. But what's the point in, there's even an argument we've done it this summer with Disasi, who could potentially be a great player for us. You spend £40 million on a centre-back where really you've got not just Trevor Chalobah, but Humphreys, who was fantastic throughout pre-season. And if you're just looking for centre-back cover, why not just use them? Why pad out the squad with these, 30, 40, 50 million pound signings when it doesn't seem entirely necessary? Yeah, hopefully that will be the vision going forward. But I still think there's a little bit of temptation from the club to... Well, obviously, they need to comply with financial fair play regulations. The easiest way to do that is to sell academy players because it's pure book profit. So I wouldn't be surprised to see more of these players leave. But ultimately, bad as it sounds, who gives a shit if we got a great team and Chelsea are winning?
Exactly, mate. Exactly. Like Lewis Hall, absolutely gutted. But it seems like he wanted to go, though. It seemed, because isn't he like a Newcastle fan?
He's a Newcastle fan, yeah. And, it's kind of the danger of giving someone minutes against the likes of Man United, Man City as a teenager, as an 18-year-old, and then playing that well, is that he's going to be sat there and he's thinking, hang about, I'm good enough to play Premier League football. Why am I going to sit here on the bench for Chelsea, or maybe not even make the bench? When I do play, it might only be 10 minutes here and there. He's thinking, Newcastle are interested in signing him. Eddie Howe obviously has a long-term plan for him. He's great at developing and integrating talent, particularly English talent. And his family are all Newcastle fans, including himself. So I think it was one of them where the stars just kind of aligned, and Chelsea were happy to make a deal because, we need pure book profit in order to comply with financial fair play. It's a shame. It's a shame. And we'll probably live to regret it. But not every player that comes through and looks promising is A, going to be given the opportunities to play for Chelsea, B, even going to want to play for Chelsea and not going to want to move elsewhere. You know, I remember seeing somebody describe Chelsea's academy as like Oxford University. It's like the best in class for young talent to go there and learn their trade and be provided with that springboard into senior football. It's why not just across the Premier League, but the whole football pyramid, you see Chelsea academy players playing key roles. You know, not all of these players are supposed to make it at Chelsea, but a lot of them and their families see it as the perfect way for them to get a platform to build a successful career in professional football. So I think, you know, as much as we all like to have this idea that they're Chelsea bred, they love the club, blah, 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 it's kind of not always the truth.
Yeah, I think that's exactly the point I was going to make, mate. It's just we always have this thing where we assume that any academy players that come through are Chelsea fans. And, you know, a lot of them probably aren't. You know, even the ones we thought were massive Chelsea fans, Mason Mount, you know, left. So, yeah, honestly, the things with Lewis Hall is like, I've just been so. He was one of the best academy players I've ever seen in Chelsea. He's been so quality consistently at such a young age. It's just a shame. And also, we didn't get a lot of money for him either, really, like considering his potential. Yeah. But it's, you know, if he didn't want to be, he didn't want to be here. So we move on. But yeah, mate. Cool. Anything else?
I think we've rambled on for enough for 1 week.
Everyone's probably switched off by now anyway, so it doesn't matter what we say.
Yeah, if anyone's made it to this part of the podcast, then drop me a DM and I'll send you a $5 on PayPal.
Yeah. We'll pre-order you the new FIFA or something. But yeah, cool. All right, mate. Nice one. Well, yeah. So in terms of the fixture run as well, just to finish on that. So we've got Wimbledon on Wednesday, and then we've got Forest at home on Saturday, and then we've got a lovely, exciting 2-week international break, which everyone loves. Do you watch the England games in the international break?
It's one of them ones where if there's one on a Friday or a Saturday night, it's an excuse to go to the pub and watch it with my friends, right? But how much of the game I actually watch? Very little. And then you get the one which is like the following Monday or the Tuesday or something. If I come home from work, put the telly on and put that on, I would be very surprised. I'm not sure I've ever seen one of them. On Twitter, it's like, oh, England 6, Andorra 0. Like some, you know, I just, it doesn't appeal to me. Even the fact that they're Euro qualifiers at this point, I know, you know, we've missed out before, but there's no doubt we're going to qualify for the Euros, not with this team. No doubt whatsoever. So there's nothing riding on it. It's always boring. I just can't be arsed, mate, to be honest with you.
I used to be really into it. Like, I used to be massively England up until about, I think it was the World Cup 2010 that did me in. When we went into that, we're like, this is our last chance for our golden generation to actually win something, and they were just horrendous. Yeah, I used to be really into it. I just can't bother anymore because it's all just a formality now. It's just like, how big are we going to win? And the football's not great. And it always feels like the players are like sort of slightly holding back because they've got one eye on their getting injured. Yeah. They want to get injured for club football. So, yeah. But
I mean,
anyway.
The international tournaments, don't get me wrong, I live and breathe it. Like, I get obsessed with it. But like the prelude to it, I couldn't give a fuck.
Yeah, qualifying is just. I think I used to watch the older ones just because we had I don't know, say bigger names, but I don't know. Maybe I think it was just because I was younger, if I'm honest. Yeah. Just a bit more interested. Now I'm just a bit like, yeah, probably it's just that, mate. Probably just, I had the time. You know, any football, also, I watch any football.
Yeah, and because I never used to have Sky and they were always on like ITV or something, like
yeah, that's true.
That was another big reason as well.
Yeah, but yeah, cool. All right, mate, nice one. Well, yeah, thanks for watching, everyone. Don't forget to subscribe and all that good shit, and we'll see you next time.